The sun had barely begun to rise, casting soft beams of light through the kitchen window. The aroma of sizzling breakfast filled the house as Jing stood at the stove, expertly flipping pancakes, his hands moving with practiced ease. Though his silence was often a mark of his serious demeanor, today he was completely focused on the task at hand, making sure the kids had something hearty to start their day. Evie was already in the middle of getting ready, her red hair neatly braided as she grabbed her coat from the back of a chair. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes gentle as she spoke to Jing. "I'll be heading out soon," Evie said, her voice warm but laced with the quiet determination of someone with a busy day ahead. Jing only nodded in response, the clattering of the pans the only sound as he finished up the last of the pancakes. He could hear footsteps approaching from the hallway. "Kids," Jing called, his voice low but firm. "Breakfast is ready." The first to appear in the kitchen was Valel, dressed in his school uniform, a standard navy blazer, white button-up shirt, and matching slacks. His expression was unreadable as he walked past, taking a seat at the kitchen table without a word. His tousled dark hair fell into his eyes as he looked down at the plate of pancakes Jing set in front of him. He didn't need to say much. It was clear he had a reserved nature, preferring to keep to himself rather than chatter about the morning. Next came Kaori, her soft brown hair pulled back into a neat ponytail, her school uniform fitting her petite frame. Her eyes, two different hues of purple, sparkled with energy as she bounded into the room, a wide smile lighting up her face. "Good morning, Jing. Thanks for breakfast," Kaori greeted, her voice sweet and cheerful as she took a seat beside Valel. The warm, sunny personality that contrasted with the quiet, serious nature of her brother made her presence feel like a breath of fresh air in the room. Viridia followed closely behind Kaori, her strawberry blonde hair tied in a loose ponytail. She was dressed similarly, her school uniform sharp and neat, though her posture was much more relaxed than the others, a slight tomboyish edge to her appearance. Despite her small, slender frame, there was a quiet intensity about her, especially when it came to her training. Viridia shot a glance at the other two kids before taking her seat, looking like she was still half lost in thought. She didn't need to speak much. Her fiery personality was well known by now, and her eyes always seemed to be scanning the room, calculating and sharp. The three siblings sat down, exchanging quiet greetings before diving into the meal laid before them. Jing didn't speak much. He was used to the noise of the morning routine by now. But something in the air felt different. Maybe it was the way they'd all grown since that fateful day they first met. As the last of the pancakes were being devoured, Jing glanced at the clock on the wall and raised an eyebrow. "So, where's Sora?" he asked, his voice as blunt as ever. Valel was the first to respond, his tone dry but somehow still serious. "He's still sleeping." Jing just sighed quietly, shaking his head. Typical. Jing sighed softly and briefly closed his eyes. His gaze lingered on the stairs, and for a moment, a faint glow emanated from his eyes. The faint pulse of energy was enough to signal that he'd nudged Sora into consciousness. Moments later, a loud, disgruntled yell echoed from upstairs. "I'm up! I'm up!" Sora's voice, half groggy and half annoyed, echoed through the house. There was the unmistakable sound of a struggle, followed by a crash. Sora's muffled complaints drifted down from above. The clatter of footsteps grew louder, followed by an awkward shuffle as Sora made his way down the stairs, still half asleep. He appeared at the top of the stairs, looking like a mess, half-dressed, with his shirt half tucked in and his tie hanging crookedly around his neck. His hair was a mess, sticking up in random directions, and his eyes, usually bright and full of energy, were barely open. Still, the red around the outer parts of his blue eyes gave him away as someone who'd just barely escaped the comfort of his bed. I'm getting there, Sora grumbled, rubbing his face. He moved down the stairs like a zombie, trying to make himself presentable but failing miserably. Sora reached the bottom of the stairs, stumbling slightly before straightening up, offering a lazy grin as he slouched toward the table. "Morning, or, well, whatever it is right now," he muttered, still shaking off the remnants of sleep. Evie, already dressed and ready to leave, leaned against the doorframe with a knowing smile. "You know, you really should start waking up earlier if you're going to keep up with everyone else." Sora shot her a tired look, brushing his messy hair back. Didn't mean to sleep in, just kind of overslept, he muttered, shrugging it off. You know how it goes. Jing, who had been quietly tending to breakfast, didn't say a word, but the faint glow in his eyes was enough to indicate that his use of energy had nudged Sora awake. The glow faded as quickly as it had appeared. Sora glanced at Jing, who remained silent as usual, and then flashed an apologetic smile. Guess I owe you for that. Evie chuckled, crossing her arms. I swear you and that alarm clock have a love-hate relationship. Sora didn't even try to defend himself this time. What can I say? It's a gift, he said, grinning sheepishly as he flopped into his seat at the table, already reaching for the food. Thanks for breakfast, Jing. Evie shook her head with a grin before looking Sora over one more time. Are you sure you're ready for school, dressed like that? Sora shrugged as he dug into his food, completely unfazed. Hey, I'll survive. I'm still waking up. As the group settled into their morning routine, Evie glanced at the clock and straightened up, grabbing her bag from the counter. Well, I'd love to stick around, but someone's got to bring home the bacon, she said with a wink, giving them all a warm smile. Take care of yourselves, all right? She walked briskly toward the door, calling over her shoulder. Goodbye, everyone. Don't make too much of a mess. Jing gave her a silent nod, the faintest smile tugging at his lips as he continued with his quiet, focused work. As Evie opened the door, she paused just before stepping out, turning back to look at her children with a playful glint in her mismatched eyes. Oh, and Kaori, she said with a teasing smile, make sure your lazy older brother gets his act together, will you? Kaori, who had been sitting quietly at the table, looked up and grinned. Sure thing, Mom, she replied with a soft laugh, standing up from her chair and making her way over to where Sora sat slouched. You heard her, Kaori added, giving her brother a playful nudge in the side. Get moving, you've got a reputation to uphold. Sora groaned dramatically, clearly not looking forward to the task at hand. I don't need this pressure first thing in the morning, he mumbled, though he still allowed Kaori to start adjusting his disheveled uniform with practiced precision. As Kaori fixed her older brother's tie, Sora shot a side-eye at Valel, who was sitting across from him, quietly eating his breakfast. Why didn't you wake me up, Val? Sora asked, his voice filled with a mix of annoyance and confusion. Valel, ever the calm one, looked over at him, his face impassive. I tried, but you wouldn't move, he said simply, not even bothering to look up from his plate as he finished his meal with a quiet grace. Sora rolled his eyes, slouching further into his seat. Figures, you're useless in the mornings, he muttered, though there was no real malice behind his words. Kaori shot him a teasing glance. If you're going to complain, you might as well just get up and do it yourself, she said, finishing with his tie and stepping back to admire her work. There. Not bad for a lazy older brother. Sora sighed, finally sitting up and looking more like a teenager about to face a day of school. Slightly presentable, but still not fully awake. All right, I'm ready. You can stop fussing over me now.